Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of our SaaS growth community. We have Chris with us, who's a content marketing manager at Acquire. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Definitely. And today we're going to talk about your content marketing journey and also some of the best practices and best advice that you have for our listeners when it comes to creating content and also promoting this content. Okay.
Sounds good.
Super. So before we start, I just wanted to ask you regarding the content. Content could be quite versatile. There's video content and blog and social media. What exactly do you do in the company? What's your area of responsibilities?
So I handle virtually all the communications in the company. So everything from emails that we send our customers to blog posts to um, scripts for videos,
Mhm.
ads, all sorts of different things. Everything that's I'm in the communication sphere, but definitely with more of a copywriting bent.
Right. So would you say that your website blog is a big part of what you're doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, over time the priorities change. Right now, we're really focusing on emails and kind of doing a bit of an overhaul of our email communications and trying to consolidate it. But yeah, blogging has been one of the key ways that we've managed to grow the business. It's definitely something we truly believe in because it's how we first of all raise awareness because M&A is such a complex landscape and it's the first way we could start to kind of educate people who perhaps didn't know as much about M&A. It's quite a complicated industry
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
lots of kind of information asymmetry, you could call it. So it's definitely before there's a lot of information for buyers, but not so much for the founders, the sellers on the sell side. So yeah, the blog has been a massive asset to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like M&A, it's been quite a topic. I don't think that people really get into it until they are trying to sell their business. So that's there's a lot to educate those people about. And when it comes to the blog, let's say, do you guys focus mostly on like SEO content? Do you do the keyword research, and put like any SEO angle to what you're doing on the website blog, or is it purely, educational and kind of like focusing on the value first?
I would say we've been value first. We did try the SEO. I mean, we do take SEO into account, and we always have done. But we've kind of our our focus on it has kind of waxed and waned. We've
Uh-huh.
tried different experiments with SEO. Really focusing on the long tail keywords, and had some degree of success with that. But really, we've mostly been focusing on education so far. Our first
Hmm.
phase of the business was all about education. So we're really just trying to understand what issues customers were having about in selling their business, and then writing content that address those pain points. So it's a lot more
Hmm.
about education and less so about just trying to write content based on keyword research. And also, there's a little bit of a question mark over whether somebody who's got a SaaS company worth $5 million, if they're really googling questions like what is an APA or what is an LOI, which are types of legal documents which are pretty
Hmm.
common in acquisitions, um, or what is
Absolutely.
MRR, what is ARR. So we've had this conversation internally. Sometimes you have to think a little bit harder about your customer and how they find the information that you want to give them. So where are
Hmm.
they? Are they really going to be on doing Google searches to find the information they're looking for? Are they going to be somewhere else in a community or something like that? Certainly on the smaller end, perhaps people with smaller companies with less
Hmm.
exposure to the M&A industry. But I think once your company reaches a certain size, then um, you become well, more and more people start contacting you about buying your business. So I think they have a little bit more um, a little bit more understanding of how the M&A market works. So yeah,
Hmm.
sorry, that's a long way of answering your question, but yes, we do consider SEO, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not like our number one consideration at
Right.
the moment.
Very interesting approach, and I totally agree with you that you have to be where your customers are. So, if you're not doing and you're not starting off with a keyword research, how do you normally choose those topics for your blogs? What to focus on? What is your content plan going to be? Months 1, 2, 3. How do you set your priorities as to what kind of topics to focus on?
So the phase we're in the business at the moment, we spent, like I said before, a lot talking about education, where we would
Yeah.
break down like the acquisition process into stages and work, write content, which was pretty high level. It was kind of introductory, I would say. And then over time, as we've got to know our customers better and understand them more and the questions that they have, then we've kind of focused in sort of into specific topics, which we believe are important. And the way we do that is we have an amazing customer success team who help founders get acquired. And we record
Yeah.
those calls and we can listen back to those calls. We used to also do
Hmm.
user interviews as well. So anytime somebody got acquired, we would, interview them and ask them how that went. And the reason we were doing that is so that we could find out what the obstacles were during the acquisition process, what things they found easy, what did they find difficult, and then we would write content, to address those concerns. And that's been really effective for us. We're all about customer research, and because we're solving problems for customers, and they're the experts on the issues that they're having. So we really do try to get an understanding from their perspective, and
Hmm.
that's worked really well for us, to help plan content. So it can be a little bit.
Hmm.
We don't. I'd say we're still kind of refining how we approach content planning. We can be sometimes a bit reactive. And I think that's a lot to do with, we're just starting to, we do a lot, we write a lot about like trends, industry trends, and things like that. But I think there is still a little bit of education to be done, and it's just getting down into the deeper side and getting involving experts in content production as well. So we have partners and advisors that we
Hmm.
work with, and they've been great at giving us some additional insight on what content to produce, and also in writing for us, and doing guest posts and that kind of thing.
Hmm. Okay. Now, this is actually very interesting, and I say that it's the beginning of era of this. How do you call it? The collaborative growth. Another founder of DataBox just shared that with me. So, actually talking to your network and sharing the insights of those experts and influencers in the niche. Is actually super helpful with your content marketing strategy. When you share someone else's expertise, not just your own, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's much more credible to, I suppose, if you see a blog post about, how to get your startup acquired, if it's written by somebody who has, expertise in that area, or if it's something, maybe it's financial due diligence, for example, which is a very
Yeah,
complicated subject. I mean,
absolutely.
I could write about that personally, but then you could have somebody else in the financial due diligence field writing about it. And there is a lot more credibility to be had when you have an expert writing on these complex topics. I mean, it doesn't matter how much research I do, it's not going to be any match for somebody who's been doing this specific job for 10 years and has gone to university to study it.
Of
So
course.
whenever we can get experts to help, speak to our customers, we do try and do that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, 100% agree with you. And just to understand the buyer journey of your potential customers. So let's say they come to your blog. Do they come from? You said they're not really coming from Google. Like, do they come from newsletter or social media or any other sources?
That's a good question. We do get quite a bit of organic traffic to the blog, but I would say because Andrew, our CEO and founder of Acquire.com, he has quite a large social media following. So that has been a really important distribution channel for us. I think nowadays
Mhm.
distribution is everything with content. It's not enough just to churn out, to write content and publish it. You also have to try
Definitely.
to find, a way to rise above the noise. And I think there's so
Hmm.
many companies vying for readers' attention nowadays that you have to be kind of creative. We're lucky in that we have Andrew, and he has that platform
Hmm.
and that audience, and that's all been built out of helping founders. So I suppose, at the end of the day, if your ultimate goal is just to help customers, then you start doing that. You do it whichever way you can with content, and eventually, you build up an audience. Word of mouth is still very powerful, I think. um,
For sure.
so yeah, I would say social
Okay.
media has been really useful for us. um, I'm trying to think if there are
Uh-huh.
any other. We do have a newsletter as well, which people can sign
Right.
up to, and it's been a really good way of repurposing content. So people perhaps haven't seen it before, just by browsing the blog, they get exposure to it through the newsletter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super helpful as well. And like, what would be the next step you would say? So I'm arriving to your blog. I'm reading through the article, and should I take any other steps? Like, will I get the, maybe, I don't know, remarketing ads shown after I visited your blog, or do I get some kind of like call to action, maybe an event invite, or like download an ebook or anything like, this inbound technique that is the next step for someone who just arrived to your blog?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do a bit of everything really. So we use lead magnets, we have
Hmm.
ebooks, some of which, are really extensive. We went quite deep in some of our ebooks. And also we have CTAs in all the blogs, I believe. We try to include a CTA.
Hmm.
Usually it depends at which audience we're targeting, but if it's someone, say, at the top of the funnel, then we'd probably be just asking them to, have a look maybe at another blog, or maybe to have a look at
Yeah.
the website. And then obviously the further down the funnel we get a bit stronger with the CTAs, and then it's more about, signing up and that kind
Hmm.
of thing. So we do a bit of everything.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I was also wondering, when it comes to the existing content on your blogs, do you guys update this content or not? And if so, like, how often do you usually do that? Is that part of the content strategy that you're following?
Yeah, absolutely. We tend to update anything which we believe still has value today. So not every blog is evergreen, but those
Yeah.
that are, we do return to. Usually, it's when we release a new product, or if the company takes a different direction, or there's some sort of upgrade, or there's a major trend happening in M&A, which we think we need to mention in a previous
Hmm.
blog. And but then there are other things that, don't need to get updated. And we also have launched a help center as well. So we overhauled that in the last about 6 months ago. So now that has, it's well
Hmm.
stocked, not with blogs, but with help desk articles, which we keep up to date as well. So that's a great way
Hmm.
to kind of
Hmm.
split our content up, where, we have very to the point, helpful step by step guides and stuff on the help center, and then on our blog
Hmm.
post and do more opinion based stuff. Um,
Okay. Yeah, knowledge base could be also a great source of even organic traffic,
yeah,
sometimes. Um, so imagine that you're about to write an article for the blog, and you sit down and what do you do? Do you create like a content brief or something, an outline? And also, how do you decide whether these blog posts should be one keywords or like five keywords? What do you do to determine that? Like, do you take a look at the competitors, or maybe some tools that you have? Like, we are really interested in hearing that.
Okay. Um, so yeah, I mean, if was another one, if another writer is going to work on it, then definitely we will create a brief for that
Hmm.
writer. The brief will explain, why we're writing this particular piece of content. Maybe give some example headlines, some example section titles that they could go and take forward, and that's based on SEO research. But
Hmm.
the flip side to that is we do, if it's something where it's a common customer question that we get and we believe should become a blog post, for example,
Hmm.
then in those cases, if we don't use an expert to answer it, if we're going to answer it, then we try to answer with experts from within our team. So right now we're
Hmm.
doing a series of interviews with different people in the team. So we've had Romaine, who is our chief revenue officer, and she was
Uh-huh.
talking our customer success team and how we help people get acquired through like
Yeah.
end-to-end coaching and support. We had another blog post about from our head of design, who was talking about a design philosophy at acquire.com, but done in a way where we're talking about problems which our founders face, all company owners face, maybe like figuring out how they go about design. We explain how we do it, but also it's kind of subtly explaining what we do at acquire.com as well and why we do it, why we make those decisions. So it's always reinforcing the message that we're always thinking about our founders. So when it comes to starting an article like that, obviously we'll start with an interview, and we'll come up with the questions beforehand based on, and again, it's all really comes from our customer research. We
Hmm.
don't really sit down and say, like, I wouldn't sit with one of our writers and say, okay, you need to hit this many keywords. We have AIO SEO just as a basic tool that we use in WordPress,
Uh-huh.
which gives some hints on that front, but we generally know what kind of main keywords we're targeting, but
Uh-huh.
we're not too strict about it. Most of the time, we're just aiming to write well, write engagingly, and
Hmm.
ensure that we're answering the question posed in the article, and doing so with enough detail to make a difference.
Okay, that's definitely beneficial for any kind of content and any kind of content marketing strategy, to focus on value first. Totally
Yeah.
support that. And would you say that, well, actually, one of the burning questions that I meant to ask you is ChatGPT or not ChatGPT?
We've had this debate many times internally. So I don't use ChatGPT yet. I've been a bit hesitant to use it, I suppose, not because I don't think it's a powerful tool, but because I'm a little bit, I suppose, ethically resistant to it. I don't like the idea that it's being fed other people's work and these people aren't getting the credit
Hmm.
for it. And also, I believe it has quite a lot of limitations as well on what it can do. I think it's a great tool from what I've seen for getting like a basic framework down or like the gist of an article you want to write. But then you really do need to step in afterwards and kind of, basically write it from scratch. Um,
Absolutely.
but you can use it as a guide. It's a good research tool, and we have people within the marketing team that use it, and the sales team to use it just to get some very quick ideas.
Yeah, and okay, if we're leaving ChatGPT behind, what tools do you actually use in your day-to-day work?
What tools do I use? Um, I think I might disappoint you. I don't use a lot of tools in my day-to-day work. Um, we
Just my
use,
brain, isn't it?
yeah, it's just my brain, and when I draft in Google Docs, if that helps. Grammarly is really
Yeah,
helpful. I think I
here
actually
we
only
go.
use
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
free Grammarly, but that's enough. I think even if you don't know what the premium suggestions they're giving you, you can usually
Mm-hmm.
guess as to what they're suggesting. Doesn't actually need you don't actually need to get told. And other than that, trying to think. No,
Oh, that's good enough.
yeah,
I think
I think
again, you're focusing on content, right, and content writing, and especially when it comes to, I don't know, email newsletters, right? That's just you and your knowledge. That's all you need, basically.
yeah. I mean, we do our newsletters on HubSpot, but that's
Uh-huh.
kind of getting into CRM territory. But yeah, for the actual production of content, you don't need much. Just like,
Mm-hmm.
brain, and you need something to put your words in, and that's about it.
Would you say that you are an M&A expert by now?
That's an interesting question. I would be reluctant to say expert, but I would say I was pretty knowledgeable on the process
Uh-huh.
now. Um, when you write about a subject for, over 2 years, that's my time spent at Acquire, um, you do pick up things, and suddenly you realize you've got a lot of knowledge. And I've been lucky in that I also write a lot of the copy for the product as well. So having exposure to both the product and also the M&A landscape has been fantastic, because it's given me like a really um, it's really kind of entrenched a lot of knowledge, because you have to break it down and make sure that you're giving the right information at the right time in the product. And you really can't do that unless you have a deep understanding of the process. So I wouldn't say I was an expert, but I would say I was, you know, what would I say I was? Fairly knowledgeable. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I guess you have no choice but be it after how many years at Acquire?
Just over 2 years.
Over 2 years. Yeah, that's amazing. So during those years, have you been collaborating with other companies maybe on some content initiatives? Maybe like, doing some kind of co-marketing, writing some kind of content together, or anything that you could share in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, we regularly do guest posts. So I'll give you an example. Uh, we have a partnership with Bupos, which is a alternative financing company. So they provide
Uh-huh.
acquisition financing for some of our founders. So they can get pre-qualified for financing before they even list their startup. And we did a couple of case studies with them. We've also written a lot of content in collaboration with our advisor network as well. And that's where we get to go deeper on some M&A topics, but still
Uh-huh.
writing in our friendly tone of voice, but going quite deep, which has been useful for founders, I think, who,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of jargon in the industry, and that can put people off. We've also written trying to think if there's any other companies that we've done co-marketing with. There's probably one or two that I can't think of off the top of my head, but yeah, whenever there's an opportunity to like exchange blog posts, we would do that. For example, I've just remembered another one. There's a company called Dula, which helps people get incorporated in the US. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
a US based investor, for example, you want to acquire a company, um, let's say in Australia or the UK, and you need to incorporate it in the US, then they can help you do that really easily. And there was a case study we had where they helped one of our buyers acquire a company and incorporate it in the US. So yeah, we do that whenever we get an opportunity to.
So that's good to know that you're accepting guest posts. If we have some M&A clients in the future, I'll make sure to reach out for a guest post opportunity.
Sure.
And yeah, speaking of trends, you mentioned that you're not really a big fan of ChatGPT, but do you observe any other content marketing trends these days that you do or don't follow?
I think, yeah, I would say the content landscape has definitely changed, especially with the arrival of ChatGPT, although I think the reaction to that is probably a bit premature. I think
Mm-hmm.
will always be a need for content writers and content marketers. Um, I
Yeah.
just think it's getting harder and harder to rise above the noise. Like I said at the beginning of the interview, there's a lot of people out there all vying for readers' attention, and to capture even a little bit of that attention, you have to work really, really hard at producing the absolute best content you can. Um,
Yeah.
and also thinking more like a media company, producing a lot of case studies and reports. Data obviously is always a massive draw. We publish sort of semi-frequently, every 6 months, a um, a multiple report where we report the average multiples at which startups got acquired, which helps our founders set asking prices which are realistic and reflective of the market, which
Hmm.
only
Hmm.
helps them attract more buyers and increases their leverage, and then they can drive their asking price up. Um,
Yeah.
so I think those that you have to think more in these terms. It's not enough just to write about a particular topic. And like I said, we spent a lot of time on education, but now we're going much deeper on some of the questions that get asked, and we're trying to produce more data-driven content. And also, we have a podcast as well, which our CEO, um, he hosts it, Andrew, called I think
Hmm.
it's SaaS acquisition stories, and that's
Ah,
been
that's amazing.
yeah, that's been great. We've had a lot of positive feedback from that. Um, so
That's
yeah,
great.
there's not really a lot more I can add. Those are the trends that
Uh-huh.
we've been seeing.
Just to summarize everything that you've been sharing today, I was wondering what kind of advice would you give to a content marketing manager who, let's say, is just starting out with a brand new SaaS company and trying to rise above the noise and trying to stand out? What kind of advice would you give to that person today?
I would advise them to listen to their customer. So get as much exposure to the customer as possible. Listen in on sales calls. Listen, you look at all the emails that get sent, and just really try to identify what the customer pain points are, why they're having these pain points, and what the solutions are to them. And then I think even if you go down the traditional just writing blogs route, you will still succeed. You will still rise above the noise because you have a better understanding of your customers' problems and what they need. And everybody is, trying to do this. I think, even the worst content marketer has to listen to their customers at some point. But I think to really succeed in this business, it's not enough just to listen. You've got to really analyze as well, and get to the heart of it, which isn't always easy, because
Hmm.
content marketers don't get to speak to customers all that often.
Yeah.
Um, but if they can, that would be also great. Um, so yeah, that would probably be the
Hmm.
best piece
The
of
main
advice.
advice.
Yeah.
Yes, I cannot agree with that more. And I think we're a little bit out of time, but thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your insights. I really hope that our fellow SaaS content marketing people would find it super inspiring and super helpful. And guys, remember to stay tuned for more empowering interviews with SaaS Growth Academy guests. And until next time, and as always, keep dreaming big. Bye.